All right, let's get started, shall we? Let's do it. Welcome, everyone. I'm I'm JC Figueroa. I'm the customer success lead for Mylio Photos. I am the pinch hitter today for Angela, who's not available. Um, and I'm also an underwater photographer, and I've been teaching technology and media for I don't care to share how many years, but it's been a lot. Uh, And today joining me are Lori Rubin, who's our product evangelist, and Matthew Bonhage, who's one of our senior support engineers. I think this slide got cut off. Apologies for that. But both of them are very knowledgeable about the product. Matthew knows everything there is to know about syncing. And later on during the presentation, particularly when we get to the Q&A session, I'll pass things over to him and he'll share some of the more advanced troubleshooting tips and some of the things that we do in support when we're trying to help someone fix their syncing issues. So how does syncing work, and how do you keep Mylio in sync? Well, before I even talk about that, I think an important piece of information that everyone might want to know, and that is not immediately clear when you look at Mylio, is what exactly is it that we're syncing? Because you might think you're just syncing the photo that you took in your phone with all other devices, and at a basic level, that's true, but Mylio is a bit more complex than that. You know, one of the great features about Mylio is that it gives you the ability to take a photo or your entire library of photos. You know, you might have 100,000 photos in your library, and you can have that entire library reside in a device that's limited in space, like a mobile phone. Mobile phones don't have as much storage as computers or external hard drives might have. But you can still fit a version of your images in that device. And that is because every photo that you import into Mylio, for every photo that you import into Mylio, Mylio is going to create some proxy versions of those photos. It's going to create what we call a thumbnail version of the photo, and it's going to create what we call an optimized version of the photo. And I'm going to switch my screen here to an example of what these versions look like. So this is a photo of a monkey that I took in, I believe, Singapore. And this is the original file. Actually, this is the edited version of the original file. But this version of the file is very large. As a matter of fact, if I switch to my Finder here and I show you the actual file, this file is about 4 megabytes, which is not huge, but it's also not that small. It can add up. When you import a photo like this into Mylio, Mylio is going to create an optimized version of the image and a thumbnail version of the image. The optimized version, which I just switched to, is going to look almost identical to the original. It's going to be very, very hard on most screens, and it's definitely going to be hard over a Zoom call for you to tell the difference. So there's the original, and there is the optimized version. In my screen, I can see a slight difference in the whiskers of the monkey between the optimized and the original. But other than that, the photos look very, very similar. And if I look at the size of the photos, the original is 4 megabytes, but the optimized image is way smaller than that. It's only 512 kilobytes. In addition to the optimized image, Mylio also creates a thumbnail version of the image. And this is a very small, much lower resolution version of the image. If I were to zoom this photo to fit the screen, just like the other two, it would look very pixelated. But the goal of these thumbnail images is not necessarily to look great, is for you to be able to fit a lot of images on your device and also to be able to scroll through your images very quickly. When you are in the Mylio application and you're here in your all photos view and you're scrolling and scrolling through photos, Mylio only loads the thumbnail version of the photos in this mode so that you can very quickly scroll through a very large library and notice how quickly Mylio updates. If Mylio was up trying to load into memory the full size, full resolution versions of your photos, this would be incredibly slow, and it would take a lot of computing power just to render that much data on the screen. So having this versioning of images is really very useful, not just because you can fit them all into one device, but because each proxy, each version serves a different purpose. So going back to syncing and answering the question, what exactly is it that we're syncing? Well, we're syncing a number of things. We're syncing at a very minimum on every single device in Mylio, at a very minimum, the minimum required set of data that every device is going to synchronize to itself is the Mylio catalog, which is a database file. Every device in Mylio, whether it's a hard drive, a phone, a tablet, a computer, is going to have a copy of your Mylio catalog. All of the thumbnails, which are the smallest proxy version of the images, and all of the XMP files. For those of you not familiar with an XMP or haven't heard about XMP files, an XMP file is a sidecar file. It's a file that lives next to the image file in your file system in Mylio. And the purpose of this file is to keep the metadata changes that you make in Mylio. Mylio is designed to be a non-destructive application, meaning that everything you do in Mylio can be reverted. We never, by default, go to the original file and manipulate or modify that file. We write all the changes to a sidecar file. That's the XMP. So this is what we're syncing. And when you, later on, when we look at the sync panel, you'll notice that sometimes the only thing that I've changed is basically a piece of data on an image, but that image has to synchronize to all of the devices. Well, it's not that Mylio is sending a copy of the photo to every device. It might only be sending the XMP file to every device. And XMP files are incredibly small. They're between 1 and 5 kilobytes each. Tiny, tiny. Sometimes smaller than that. All right. Besides that minimum amount of data that we're going to sync, the catalog, the thumbnails, and the XMP files. And what I'm talking about here is really very small. For any library, this is going to represent 2 to 3% the size of your library. So if you have a library that's 100 gigabytes, these Mylio catalog thumbnails and XMP files are only going to take between 2 and 3 gigabytes. So pretty small. Now, based on your device sync policy, what you've told every device to store locally, you might also synchronize cache optimized images. And cache means they're in the device, but they don't have to be in the device. Permanent optimized images, cache originals, or permanent originals. And we'll talk more about that. But obviously, the better the quality of the versions of the image that you're trying to keep in the device, the more storage that device is going to need. So let's go to Mylio and let's just talk about general synchronization, how you can tell whether the device is synchronized or not. The first thing that I suggest is we start with the dashboard. So we click on dashboard, which is here on the left side panel. We click on the dashboard and we click on devices. And that's going to show me a list of all of my devices in Mylio. You'll notice that for this device, the device that you are interacting with, there's a little question mark. And if you click on that, there's a little legend there. That little legend tells you the status of that device. And there's a couple of things here that are really, really important. One is the device online or not? And you can tell if a device is online by how the lettering and icons of that device look. My Mac Studio obviously is online. I'm using it. So everything is bright white versus my laptops here are gray, so I know that those devices are not online. If I scroll down, you'll notice that all of my volts and Mylio drive are all online. The other thing that you can see is whether there's a check mark under the device or there's a set of numbers. And those numbers will tell me whether that device is sending information to other devices or needing to receive. And the number is a general guideline of about how many images that device might need. So for example, my MacBook Pro here is not online, and Mali is telling me that it needs 813 images. There's 813 versions of its media library that hasn't made it to that device. It might be the original, it might be the full-size XMP, the full-size original might be just an XMP. We don't know just from this general overview. And this is helpful, right? It just, at a glance, you can say, oh, my MacBook hasn't been on for a while. It needs a lot of data, so I know that I need to turn it on and bring it online. But to really, really tell what the status of your synchronization is and to have truly, I call it my source of truth, I use the sync panel. The sync panel can be accessed by opening the right side information panel and clicking on the sync tab. And in the sync tab, you'll notice that there's two sets of subgroups that I can expand. One is activity, and right now there's no activity in Mylio, nothing is going on. The activity here is the same as if I click on the activity monitor. It's the exact same information. The other one, and the one that we're really interested in today, is the devices. And the devices is going to show me all the devices that are in my account, and it's going to show me the status of every of the library per type of media. So, for example, for my entire library of 52,227 files, my Mac Studio here has all of the thumbnails. Notice that there's a solid green line under thumbnails. That means that all the thumbnails for my entire library reside in the internal storage of my Mac Studio. It also has all of the optimized images. It has a green line there. You'll notice that the green line is not solid, it's squiggly. I'll talk about that in a second. But it has virtually no originals. There's a tiny little bit of green there. You probably can't hardly see it. But really, it doesn't have originals. And that makes sense because my Mac Studio, when I look at the device sync policy, is set up to be a space saver. If I want to save space in the internal storage of my computer, I'm not going to put the originals there. My other devices that are online, like Backblaze, which is a cloud vault, Bluefin Grouper, and Main Media, which are external hard drives, they all have solid green lines for everything. That means that my entire library has been synchronized. All the thumbnails, all the optimized images, and all the originals are in every one of those devices. And then I have some other devices that are offline and are in various states of synchronization. Looks like my phone is mostly synchronized, but my iPad Air needs some thumbnails. My MacBook Pro needs some thumbnails and some optimized images, so on and so forth. So how do I make sure that my devices are synchronized? How do I get this sync panel to always be green? Rather than using a slide, I want to refer you to a support article that anyone can find in our support.mylio.com site. So if I go to support.mylio.com and I type sync in here, one of the articles that comes up is like, troubleshooting, I'm unable to sync photos between devices. And if you click on that article, what the article is going to tell you is kind of the basics of how synchronization works and what are some of the things that we want to make sure we cover. So let's go over that really quick. The first thing you want to know is that the devices are visible to each other. And you know this because the devices are in the dashboard, as I mentioned before. have the bright white lettering. You can also tell on the sync panel here that a device is online because it has a bright white lettering and it says connected. If a device says offline and the icon is gray, that means that that device is not online. In order for Mylio to synchronize, the devices have to be online. They have to be running the Mylio application, and they have to be running a version of the Mylio app that is compatible with each other. So those are a couple of very basic things to check before you do any kind of serious troubleshooting, before you contact support. Make sure that every device is online, meaning is connected to either the internet or to a Wi-Fi network. In the case of a hard drive, make sure that hard drive is connected to another device that itself is then connected to the internet or to a Wi-Fi network, like your computer or your tablet. Make sure that they're running Mylio. Mylio is running in the foreground. On a computer like a Mac or a PC, Mylio can just be running in the background. It can be open. You can be doing other things in your computer and Mylio is just running in the background. That's perfectly fine. On a mobile device like a tablet or a phone, Mylio has to be the application that is in the foreground, the application that you're using. If you don't have Mylio open in the foreground on those devices, it is not going to synchronize. And that's not something that we can change. That's a limitation that the operating systems, Android and Mac OS, put on third-party software such as ours. So the devices are online. The devices have a version of Mylio that's compatible with each other. My suggestion is that you keep Mylio updated at all times. And the devices can see each other. And you know that the devices can see each other because they say they are connected and the lettering is white. So if I were to turn on my iPad here and launch the Mylio application on it, and same thing with my Surface tablet, you'll notice that those devices now have the white lettering. See how they're bright white here, and they show as connected devices, and they're now synchronizing. So my iPad is starting to download the thumbnails that it was missing, 282. And as we talk, those thumbnails will continue to go down. There they go. And those devices will become synchronized. Now, what happens if the devices do not see each other? What are some of the things that we can do? Well, make sure that the devices are logged into the same Mylio account. What does that mean? Well, in order for devices to be authorized to share media with each other, they have to be on the same account, right? You don't want your neighbor's photos to show up on your phone or vice versa if they're using Mylio. You want just your devices that you've authorized to be able to synchronize with each other. So the way to check that your devices are on the same account is by clicking the account button, which is up here on the upper right corner. And in there, you see what email is assigned and what account ID. Make sure that the account ID is the same for all the devices that you have connected. On a mobile device, there isn't an account button. You click on the More menu and you'll see account in there. So make sure that the devices are on the same account. Make sure that the devices are connected to the internet or to a Wi-Fi or local network. If they don't have any kind of connection, then those devices are not going to be able to see each other. Make sure, as I said, that they're running the most recent version of Mylio Photos, and that the Mylio Photos application is open and is running. Now, if you've done all those things and things are still not working, there's couple of other things that you can check. There is a setting called syncing over IPv6. If you go here to the settings in Mylio and you click on sync, one of the settings is sync over IPv6. Turn that off on all of your devices and see if that resolves the problem. IPv6 is just a version of the internet protocol that allows devices to talk to each other. There's version 4 and version 6 are the two most commonly used ones. Some networks are not compatible with IPv6, So if Mylio is trying to use that and you see that devices are not connecting, just turn it off. That will default it to using a more compatible version, version 4. And then the devices will likely start seeing each other. And then finally, and again, you can check this on the article in our support site. For Windows users, make sure that you don't have any kind of firewall settings or security settings in your computer that are preventing Mylio from seeing those devices. Now, if the devices can't see each other and synchronization is still not happening, there's a few other things to check. Most importantly, make sure that your Mylio Photos Plus subscription is current. Mylio Photos has 2 versions of our service. The free version allows devices to function independently, so only the library in that device. There's no synchronization between devices. And Mylio Photos Plus is the version of our service that enables that synchronization. So if you're not a Mylio Photos Plus, synchronization is not going to occur. Also, look at the activity menu. Sometimes, remember I mentioned the activity window here? Sometimes in here, you'll see a task or a job that is not moving. It might say moving files and there's no progress being made, or syncing this device and there's no progress being made. If you see that, there are articles linked right here that allow you to troubleshoot that specific situation. And then there's a few other things to check, does the device have enough storage? Are photos waiting to sync, etc. So we're not going to talk about that. A couple of things to look at here that reiterate what we were just saying. How the devices sync? Well, the first way is they're going to try to sync over the local area network. If you have a Wi-Fi at home or in your office or in whichever location you are, the devices will synchronize a lot better if they're connected to the same Wi-Fi or to the same network. Obviously, for devices that are not computing devices, they're not smart, like a hard drive, they need to be attached via USB to a computer that can synchronize. So make sure those devices are plugged in and working. Network attached storage is hosted by a specific device. So when you add a NAS to Mylio in a hosted way, there's 2 ways of attaching a NAS. If you have a NAS and it's hosted by a computer and that computer is not turned on and running Mylio, then the other devices are not going to be able to see that NAS, because the way that NAS communicates is through its host. So make sure the host computer is turned on and running Mylio. Over the internet, we use something called a turn server. So if your computer is at home connected to your Wi-Fi and it's turned on and it's running Mylio, and you're across town on your phone and you take a photo and then you open the Mylio app, what's going to happen is that Mylio is going to talk to our service and it's going to say, hey, JC here just took a new photo. Are there any devices online that need this photo? And the service is going to go, oh, as a matter of fact, JC's computer back at home is turned on and running Mylio. I can tell you how to connect to it. And the phone says, yes, please. And then the service, the turn server, the service that Mylio provides, tells those 2 devices how to find each other across the internet. They establish what we call a peer-to-peer connection, basically a private connection where your data is encrypted end-to-end and other people are not able to see your photos being transmitted. And then those devices start sharing data. So your photos get home before you do. And of course, cloud drives work when there's an internet connection. So if you're trying to synchronize your data to a cloud device like OneDrive or Google Drive, or even to Mylio Drive, which is also a cloud drive, you have to make sure you have an internet connection. Basic troubleshooting: can the devices see each other? Are they on the same account? Are they connected to a local area network or the internet? Do they show connected here on the device sync panel? Are the devices on a good state? Are they running the latest version of the Mylio app? That's not the latest. We're at 24.3. Is there adequate storage on the devices? If one of your devices is out of storage, it can't bring any more media in. Mylio will give you a big red banner that says this device is out of storage. You need to go and solve that situation for that specific device before your synchronization continues. And sometimes just having one device out of storage prevents other devices from synchronizing, because Mylio kind of just stops trying. It says, oh, your iPad is out of storage. I'm not going to synchronize. You'll need to either take that device offline or solve the synchronization issue before synchronization can resume. Keep your operating system up to date and look for any issues with your catalogs. You know, do you have a notification in Mylio? And for those of you not familiar, there's a little bell here that you sometimes has little red or green icons. In there, Mylio will tell you if there's a problem, and if it says catalog repair needed or some other red notification, some other error, you might want to read that error and see what the problem is, so that you can solve it and for synchronization to continue. And a couple of things to try if you exhaust. Well, a couple of things to try. Restart your device. Oftentimes, the problem is not with Mylio itself, but it's the device and the way it's connecting to a network. And restarting that device will do wonders, and everything will start working all of a sudden. You can also fully quit and restart the Mylio Photos app. Sometimes, just like humans get in a bad state, software gets in a bad state. If you quit it and you restart it, it's like taking a nap, right? Things seem a lot brighter. You can temporarily disable cloud sync. So if you go here to your sync settings, I mentioned this before, and go to sync, syncing with cloud services is one of the options. Sometimes turning that off temporarily will help you resume syncing, and then you can turn it on back. You can turn it back on later. Mylio tends to prioritize syncing to a cloud device versus syncing locally. So sometimes turning that off will help. I mentioned turning IPv6 on or off, as the case might be, and then doing a catalog repair only if you have a notification that the catalog requires repair. And of course, you can always contact us at support@mylio.com if you have other issues. So that's kind of the general overview of how syncing works. One more thing I want to show you is, obviously, if I take a photo with any device, so I'm going to bring these devices back online and show you that they all show connected. So my Mac Studio, all my vaults, my iPad, my MacBook, my Surface tablet, and now my phone are all online. I only have 2 devices that are not online. They're not in my office, so I can't access them right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a photo with my phone, and you'll see that the moment I do that, now Mylio has one photo that is not synchronized, and you'll immediately see in the sync panel that that photo needs synchronization. So I'm going to go to my phone. I'm going to take a selfie. Hello. And I'm going to open the Mylio app. And what you'll see is that Mylio will notice that there's a new photo, and it will, it did it too fast. There it goes. Notice that there's the yellow or orange file that is needing to be synchronized. If I go here to my all photos view and I go to the very top, that photo should show up any minute. Oh, we're not at the top. There we go. There's the selfie I just took. and it's telling me all the devices that do not have this photo. So my Mac Studio has the thumbnail, and it just synchronized to Backblaze. It's still synchronizing to one of my vols. There, it did it too fast. So now only the MacBook and the Mac Mini, which are the devices that are offline, are no longer synchronized. I'm going to ask Mylio for the optimized version of the image. If I do an edit on this image, like if I change, for example, I put a title, now Mylio is telling me that there's something left to synchronize. That's because I corrected or changed some data on that photo, and the XMP file for that photo is no longer the same. So now that XMP file is being synchronized across devices. So that's why some of it turned orange again. Likewise, if I do a visual edit, if I turn this photo black and white, and I go back to the sync panel, now there's a new optimized version of the photo that has to be synchronized. A new thumbnail also happened, but thumbnails are so small and they move so fast that sometimes you don't even see them needing to be synchronized in the sync panel. So right now, the new version of that photo, the black and white version, got synchronized across all devices except for the devices that are offline. So that's kind of synchronization in action, and sometimes one of the things that you can look for. All right. Okay, now let's go to questions. Actually, Matthew, did you have anything you want to add?
I did not really have anything to add as I'm going through my own list. You actually hit all of the things, such as right-clicking to download optimized or download originals. You just showcased.
Yeah.
Showcased the sync panel statuses. Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to, I guess, mention or reiterate, I know you mentioned it twice, but if a device is too full to sync, it will not sync. So
Yep.
the storage on your device could be a limiting factor on why sync is not progressing. And in the case of a computer or like an iPad that you have a USB drive with, if that device is too full, then the attached USB drive also will not sync.
Yeah. And just like you can search for sync here on our support site and get some very helpful articles and videos on synchronization, you can do the same thing with storage. So if you're getting a storage warning on one of your devices, and you go here to support.mylio.com and type storage, one of the articles that comes up is error notification, this storage full. And if you click on that article, if you click on that article, it is a very comprehensive article. It has a lot of links to specific parts of the manual. It tells you how to adjust the sync policy, how to clear the cache on your device, and a lot of other things that you can do, such as freeing up space on your camera roll. Sometimes, however, there's not something that you can do in Mylio to clear storage. You just have to look at other things in that device and create storage. We want to have our photos with us. Even at a thumbnail size, they still take some space. So if you have a device that's very, very limited on space and is constantly running out of storage, you might want to upgrade that device, or you might want to see what other things in that device outside of Mylio can be removed to create that additional space. All right, Lori, do we have specific questions we want to address? I
Yeah,
know a couple of people have their hands raised.
yeah. In the chat, Carol is asking about running out of space on her phone. So, Carol, did he answer your question for you, or it is Carol Kendall?
I'll cover it really quickly. So running out of space in your phone, usually there's two things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is change the device sync policy. So right now my phone is set up as space saver. That means that Mylio is going to attempt to have thumbnails and optimized versions of my images in that phone. If I'm running out of space, I can switch that to catalog only, and that will say that will force the phone to only keep the thumbnails. I'm not going to change it because I want mine optimized on my phone. But once you change the device sync policy to a lower threshold, right? You can go from Vault to Space Saver to Catalog. And there's a few other options that I'm not going to cover, but they're covered in that article that I just show you in the support site. When you change the device sync policy, you also need to tell Mylio to clear the cache on that device. And clearing the cache means get rid of things that are already in that device, but that because I changed the rules for that device are no longer needed. So remember my examples of my images here. So let's say that my phone was set up to be a space saver. Well, it didn't have the original version of this monkey photos, but it had the optimize and the thumbnail. If I change it to catalog only, it's only going to keep the thumbnail, but the optimize is still there. So you have to tell Mylio to clear it in order to free up that space. So just changing the setting doesn't clear the space. You have to tell it to clear the cache. And to clear the cache, you have to be on the device itself. So you have to have the physical device in front of you. Open Mylio and click this device. Scroll all the way to the bottom and push the clear cache button. And when you do that, Mylio says, oh, there's 50,000 optimized images and 800 originals stored in the internal drive of this computer that I could get rid of. And you can check one or the other or both. Click yes, and that will then free up that space on that device. So that's the first thing to try on a phone. The next thing to try on a phone is to free up space in your camera roll. So on a phone, you have, let's talk about an iPhone, but it's the same thing for an Android phone. So on your iPhone, you have Apple Photos. That's a space where versions of your photos are kept. And you have Mylio Photos. That's another space in which versions of your photos are kept. They're two separate spaces. You might have the same photo in Mylio and in Apple Photos. That's taking sometimes double the space if you're holding originals for Mylio. So what you want to do is you want to free up space on that device. And for that, there's a specific feature in Mylio called free up space on this device. I'll share my phone screen and show you what that looks like. It just takes a second. Okay, so there's my phone. If I click the More menu here on the Mylio interface, there is a feature called Free Up Space. And if you tap that feature, it'll let you customize it. But basically what Mylio will do is it'll look at the photos in your camera roll. And if those photos have already been saved to one of your vaults, they've already been, the original has been placed somewhere else, and Mylio knows that it's saved somewhere else, it will help you delete it from your camera roll to clear space on your phone. So those are the two basic things that you can do in Mylio to free up space on something like your phone. Other than that, go outside the Mylio application and try to clear space and delete other things. Oh, and last but not least, you can also change the designated storage amount that any device has. I'm showing you in the Mac Studio because this is a setting that only shows when you're on the physical device itself. But what you can do is you can change this threshold. So it might be that your phone is set to auto manage and the minimum free space is pretty large. Well, you can override that and set the minimum free space lower. So the further to the left you move this slider, the more space you're allocating to Mylio. The further to the right, the less space you're allocating to Mylio. Basically what you're saying is, how much space should Mylio not touch? And you can say, don't touch most of my space on this device, or you can use a lot of space on this device.
Would you mind just bumping it to the right and hitting apply and watching the banner show up? Just as
Sure. Yeah, if I bump it all the way to the right and I'm telling Mylio, don't use any space on this device, and I apply that change, there's my Mylio doesn't have any room, right? Because I'm telling it, hey, I want to keep a bunch of stuff in my phone, but at the same time, I'm telling it, don't use any space. I'm sorry, on this computer. At the same time, I'm telling it, don't use any space. So it's like, I can't do both. So if I switch that back to auto manage and apply changes, that banner goes away. That was a good idea, Matthew. All right, what other questions we have?
Well, let's see. Why don't you go ahead and take the hands up? Start with Edward.
Sure. I'm not sure who raised their hand first.
Sorry. Yeah, I think Edward did.
Yeah, Edward.
Okay. I'm new to this system,
Okay.
or fairly new to the system. How do I receive notification that there's an update?
Oh, it'll just pop up. There'll be a pop-up on the screen that says Mylio has a new version. Do you want to update it? If you want to manually check, you go to the Mylio Photos menu and you click check for updates.
Yeah, I've done that. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's two places where we announce new versions. On our support site, if you go to the top level of the support site here, there is I think it's under other topics. There's the change log and release notes. Every time there's an update, we'll update this article. And in our forum, there's a user forum for Mylio. Oops, sorry. What is going on? It is forum.mylio.com. Under news and announcements, I always post an announcement under the change log there when there's a new version. But in most instances, in a computer on Windows or Mac, you'll just get a pop-up on the application that says, hey, there's a new version of Mylio. Do you want to install it? And you just click the yes button. On your phones, it is dependent on your phone settings, whether you have your applications set up to auto update or not.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Jim, I think you had your hand raised next.
Yes, you touched lightly on the optimized squiggly line in the device sync panel.
Right.
I have a phone
Mhm.
that has a optimized squiggly line that somewhere along the line I was able to see that there are two files that haven't synced.
Okay.
How do I address that?
So
Or is
so
there,
there's
does that mean that those files aren't syncable?
So here's how the sync panel works. It'll either say I want something and I don't have it, and that's the numbers in orange, or
Right.
it'll say I have something and I want it, which is the solid green line, or I have something but I don't necessarily want it, which is the green line. The green squiggly line. So three options, right? Solid greens means I want these files and I have them. Everything's good. I'm happy. Squiggly green is I have these files. I don't necessarily want them. Let me give you a more visual example.
So it's not that they don't have the files, it's that they have them but don't think they need them.
Right. So here's my Mac Studio is not set to hold originals, right? But I do have the option of downloading the original. So if I download this original, notice that for my selection, the photo that is selected right now, I have that original, but it's cache. It's squiggly because this device doesn't have to have the original based on its sync policy. But if you have anything in orange or yellow, depending on your color settings, that means that Mylio wants it and doesn't have it.
So theoretically then, am I correct that if I have a squiggly optimized line,
Mhm.
perhaps I have something in the cache that is not needed?
Correct. So if I went and cleared the cache for my
Okay.
originals on this device, right? So if I
Yeah.
clear the cache now and I go back, notice that I no longer have a green squiggly line because Mylio removed the original from this device.
Okay.
It doesn't delete it, it just puts it in the trash can. So it's going to be up here somewhere.
Okay. Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're very welcome. All right. Lori, back to you. What do we got?
Yep. I think Mike is asking about Mylio Drive Plus, if you can talk a little bit about it.
It's not
What's
out
coming up?
yet. I can't tell you about it. I'll get in trouble.
Yes, you can.
Let me talk about Mylio Drive first, because we have a lot of people that are new that might not be as familiar as Mike. So Mylio Drive is a cloud device that is included with your Mylio Photos Plus subscription. And what Mylio Drive does is it keeps not only the thumbnails, but more importantly, the optimized version of your image. So if we go back to our monkey here, let's say that my phone is only set to catalog, only set to keep thumbnails, because that's all I have room for. And I'm traveling, in another city, and all I have with me is my phone. And I want to show somebody this picture of this monkey because I think it's hilarious, right? My phone only has the thumbnail. If I open Mylio on my phone and I open that photo and I have Mylio Drive, because I'm a Mylio Photos Plus subscriber, that phone can connect to Mylio Drive and bring that that optimized version. So now I go from only being able to show, let me zoom to fit here, from only being able to show that version of the photo, I go to being able to show that version of the photo, because in the cloud, there's a better version of the photo that's always available to me as long as I have an internet connection. That's what Mylio that's what Mylio Drive does today. And it's an optional part of our subscription. It's something that you can turn on or off. But it's a very convenient feature. But it's just that it's a convenience feature. It's not a protection feature. In an upcoming release, we're going to have Mylio Drive Plus. And what Mylio Drive Plus will allow is for the original version of the photo to be stored to a Mylio provided cloud service. So Mylio Drive is a convenience feature. Mylio Drive Plus is a protection feature. So the original version of the photo will store to the cloud. Mylio Drive Plus will require a separate cost. It's not included with the Mylio Photos Plus subscription. Mylio Drive is, we'll store your optimized, but storing originals takes a lot of room, and it costs us as the provider money, so we have to charge for it. And those details are forthcoming. You'll start seeing information about that pretty soon, because we're pretty close to releasing that. I hope that answered your question, Mike. Do we have other questions?
Maybe one more. Matthew's been doing a great job answering, so trying to keep up with him.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think it's Aaron is asking. He's got an issue with his external drive. His Mylio library is around 2 terabytes, and the only file on is a 6 terabyte drive. The drive is registering as full. How is that possible?
Let me see if I can find that. You said it was Aaron?
Yeah, 1218.
Arlen.
Hi, Jason.
Arlen, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Does the operating system say that it has like 4 terabytes left on it? Or does the operating system say it's full too? I did help a user recently
Under
with a
disk
5
utility, it does say it's full. And when I look at the Mylio folder, it says it's 2.27 terabytes, yet the disk is reading as full.
Is it an APFS drive?
Yes.
I have no idea why that much storage is being used, but I helped someone with that earlier this week. There was nothing in the trash on the drive when I looked in my previous case, so it's something with like the drive is holding on to data and not deleting it. I don't know how to force it
So you're saying to empty the trash?
You can
On-
try
on-
emptying.
That's the first thing to try.
Okay,
Arlen, you have a case open with us, right? I think Michael has
I do.
sign. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he can't figure out, we'll escalate that to engineering and have them help us out. And just so everyone knows how we manage the support flow of cases. So when you send a case to support, and by the way, the best way to do that is from the help menu in the application, contact Mylio support. That sends us logs from your system. When we get those cases, it usually goes through a tier system. One of our junior engineers, support engineers will look at the case. If they can help you, they will. If they can't help you, then they escalate it and it goes to someone like Matthew or Michael, and they start parsing through your logs. They start investigating, they try to reproduce the problem. Sometimes some of these problems are very obscure and they're edge cases. So it takes us a while for complex cases to eliminate all the variables and to try to find specifically what part of the application is causing a problem. And we do that by looking at the logs. And just to give you a general idea of what I'm talking about, logs look like this. So sometimes it's like searching for a needle in a haystack and finding a very specific error. But when we find that error, we either have a solution for it and we offer that solution. And if not, we aggregate all of the cases for which we need to escalate to engineering. And once a week, we have a meeting with engineering where we go over the cases and they help us solve them. So sometimes it takes us a couple of days, or, you know, if your ticket happened to come in on Tuesday afternoon after we had the meeting with engineering and it's a very complex ticket, it might take us a week to get back to you, but we'll always get back to you. All right. I think Mike has his hand raised.
Hey, JC.
Hey.
I wanted to ask, it's my job to get you in trouble, I guess, but I wanted to ask you another question about Mylio Drive Plus. But I also want to thank you for the support job since you brought it up. You know, you and Matt, especially at Roots Tech, but you really helped me find 10,000 lost originals. So support-wise, you guys are awesome.
Glad that we're
Mylio
able to
Plus,
help.
Mylio Drive Plus, will that also be helpful for video? Because like right now, I can't show video files sometimes if I don't have a device available. So can I?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so photos and videos are treated differently, right? So going back to my monkey photo, I'm not sure if you guys are tired of looking at this monkey. If this was a video, I would have the original and I would be able to play that video, but the optimized version of that video would just be the first frame. And that doesn't help you very much, right? So we don't create an optimized version of a video because that involves transcoding the video and down resonate and a lot of other work. Is something that we would like to do someday, but we don't create optimized versions of video. So if you want to play a video, you need the full size original. And because Mylio Drive doesn't keep originals, if you don't have it on your device already, you can't play it. So either it has to be on a device, like if your computer is on at home, Mylio can download it from your computer. But yes, Mylio Photos Plus will keep originals. Actually, Mylio Photos Plus will behave like a full cloud device. So you'll be able to set up any device sync policy that you want all the way up to a vault. You can set it up to, if you only want to pay for a certain amount of storage, you could set up Mylio Photos Plus to only keep your originals of your videos, right? You can set up a sync policy of videos only. And that way, if have your libraries videos and have your libraries photos, you can just use Mylio Drive for your optimized photo images, which are fine. Use Mylio Photos Plus for the half of your library that's videos. And that way you're only paying for the amount of storage that you need. But yes, it will help you with that.
You mean Mylio Drive Plus?
Yes, sorry, Mylio Drive Plus.
There's a lot of pluses out there, so
I know a lot of terms being thrown around. I'm glad you caught me though. Keep me honest.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. What do you think, Lori? Did we do it?
I think so. Vern has one last question in chat.
in
about
device sync
policies.
policy, how does the image policy work? Well, let's just go over device sync policy really quickly. So device sync policy basically is you have presets, and the presets is just that, is something that is a pre-built set of instructions that we've created. Catalog only is gonna keep only thumbnails. If I do space saver, it's gonna keep thumbnails and optimize images. If I switch to a vault, that's gonna keep all of the files. I can have a preset, for example, of space saver, and then override that preset by having a specific image policy. So let's say that on my Mac Studio, I wanted all of my optimized images, but I also wanted any photos that I have rated 4 or 5 stars to be kept in that internal storage as an original. I can add a quick collection. I can click on 4 and 5 stars, which is a quick collection I created. And now Mylio is going to, when I step out of here and apply that, notice that now Mylio wants a bunch of originals. It wants, well, it's going too fast, it's synchronizing too fast for me to keep track, but it wanted about 400 originals. So what Mylio is doing is, because I adjusted the image policy for my originals to include 4 and 5 stars, Mylio is downloading those and adding them into my collection. So if I went over here to all my photos and I apply a quick filter that show me 4 and 5 star images, and I selected them all, you'll notice that Mylio has the originals for those now, because I changed my device sync policy with an override for originals. And you can do that for optimize or for originals, however you want. So I hope that answered your question.
Okay.
And
Doug said you did it, and thanks for the
I did
sessions.
it. All right. Well, I'm glad I was helpful. I hope you guys learned something about syncing today. Most of the time is one of those basics. So just follow the basics. If you've gone through the articles in our support site and you tried all the things that we suggest and you're still having problems, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be happy to help you. And until the next one, until Angela lets me do one of these again, it's good to see you guys. Thanks to Lori and Matthew for their help.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a good day.
Nice.
Bye.